Ladies and gents, boys and girls, BPAC back at you with my great buddy Ryan Watson. We've got a great topic for you today. Ryan and I actually differ on our opinions on this, which is why we chose to do the video. He's going to give you his opinion on stretching during the workout. I'm going to give you my opinion on stretching during or after the workout. So Ryan, what's your thoughts? I know we take, like I said, we take differing opinions. Why do you, Ryan chooses to stretch during, you explain, he likes to stretch during the workout, and explain why and what you feel like it does for you.
Well, you know, basically I think a lot of my stretching techniques and beliefs are kind of originated from like my athletic background playing football, and we would always taught to dynamically stretch, dynamically warm up, you know, which is basically like a stretch that involves a movement pattern that's going to help warm up, specifically getting muscles to fire that you're going to be working. And then doing a cool down static stretch post workout.
Give an example of that. What's a stretch that involves a movement?
Okay, so for instance, like a hamstring stretch would be, you know, right here.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
So that's a dynamic stretch.
So now in that
versus
case,
you just holding your foot out there and holding the stretch.
Now in that case, would you be trying to contract your quad while you're doing that? So
I think without a doubt.
That makes complete sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
So therefore, you're stretching the muscle out,
right,
and you're getting it,
blood flow.
Yeah, exactly, whatnot. And you're kind of getting your central nervous system ready for activity and whatnot.
Right.
So that's been beneficial. Now, but I find though that like over the years, now I know a lot of the research is out on like static stretching before you work out. I don't really do the static stretching before I work out, but I start to incorporate it about halfway through my workout. Okay, while my muscles are really warmed up, my tendons and ligaments are very pliable and stretchable, I start to incorporate some 15, 20-second holds for whatever particular muscle group that I'm trying to work that day. And dude, I just find that it helps to stretch out the fascia, it helps to release some of that lactic acid, enables some more blood to get into the muscle. Some of my old strength coaches used to say you need to stretch as hard as you train, okay? And I believe that your body is all about maintaining that balance between strength and flexibility and balance, because anytime you focus too much on strength in one area, your body's going to compensate towards that, and it's going to create instability and weakness in another part of the body. So I feel like it helps me stay safer, as far as like reducing injuries, just because and then if you wait till you work out after the workout, you're going to kind of stretch half-assed and you're going to do it for 2 minutes and you're gone.
Right.
But if you're stretching between sets after you've already warmed up and you got your pump on, I find that you've gotten in about 10-15 minutes of stretching between sets. So instead of killing time, twiddling your thumbs between sets, I'm stretching. I find that it works for me. I feel much better after workout. It's really reduced the chances of injuries for me. But I know other guys, like yourself, kind of.
Yeah, I take a differing approach. I mean, Ryan suggests the dynamic stretching. I'm a huge fan. I've started doing that for probably about a year, especially before leg workouts. I really find, so like Ryan says, a hamstring stretch would be a dynamically like trying to stretch this way, but the thing you don't see us doing is contracting the quads, which really helps to elongate the hamstring. I think that's great, but the way I view that, that's an activation, and it just happens to be a passive stretch of the hamstring. So to me, that's an activation of the quad, and the hamstring just, as a secondary benefit, happens to elongate and get a little more blood flow. The reason behind not stretching during a workout, the science shows, and anybody, like muscle physiology will tell you that if you elongate a muscle, you're giving it conflicting messages, right? If I say, I'm trying to elongate this muscle, you're telling it to relax, you're telling it to elongate. When we're trying to train it, it's the exact opposite. You're trying to contract, shorten, and get strong, not relax. It's the exact opposite stimulus to your nervous system. So that's why I choose personally to wait to the end of a workout to stretch. One thing I have started doing though is very short stretches. So if you can imagine, when I'm doing a chest movement and I come back to this position, it's a stretch, but it's a loaded stretch. So it's not necessarily a bad idea to do a loaded stretch, provided it's not for a really long period of time. I like the idea of loaded stretching because the muscle still has to stay under tension. So I'll give you guys some insights into some of the new training methodologies I'm doing. It involves a lot of loaded stretching, interset stretching, maximizing lactic acid production. Because if you can imagine doing an exercise and then stretching, still holding that weight, never allows your muscles to relax because they still have to kind of fight that while still being elongated, getting that additional lactic acid. There's a lot of science behind that. That's a little
heads up, little introduction.
Yeah, exactly. A little foreshadowing, if you will, of what's to come in the future. So a lot of cool things coming at you, but I'm not an advocate of necessarily stretching during the workout unless it's a loaded stretch for a short period of time between sets. That's it. And I mean,
So basically, you're talking about using actually to stretch in part of your workout. You're actually exercise instead of keeping them separate.
right.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've noticed the science says that stretching will make you weaker. So theoretically, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I just want to prevent injury. If I'm giving my muscles two conflicting signals, one saying get as strong and powerful as possible, and the other saying relax and elongate, that's two conflicting signals, and I don't want to put myself at a predisposition for injury.
And I think that a lot of the stretching intervals determine on how long you're stretching muscle, whether it deactivates that stretch reflex mechanism.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I've heard anything from like holding a stretch over 30 seconds is going to deactivate that. So I try to keep my stretch between 15 to 20 seconds. And I try to stretch so I'm like, in a really amount of discomfort, but not to a point where I'm gonna like tear a limb or anything like that.
One thing that I started doing, I'm more of a fan of activating muscles versus stretching muscles. So an example being, if we're trying to train chest, and so obviously I'm trying to elongate the chest in a stretch is my goal. If I'm stretching, the goal is to elongate. I'll actually do the opposite. Instead of putting my resistance here and trying to stretch this muscle, I'll actually put my resistance here, push that way, and try to elongate the muscle that way. So you're still getting the benefit of elongating the muscles while activating the muscles in the back. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So you can't see I'm actually pushing into Ryan.
Yeah.
So like activating these muscles in the back, and then and reciprocally we're going to elongate this muscle.
He made a great point too. Like one of the only really ways to truly get a muscle to completely relax is to activate the antagonistic muscle group. So by that, I've never heard of that concept. I think that's great. Activating the antagonistic muscle
Right.
group, causing the opposing muscle to completely stretch and relax.
Right.
And so
I do a lot of that stuff with rotator cuff and things like that because, I mean, a rotator cuff isn't something, you get people doing, this stuff, and I don't think that's something you want to stretch before you're about to load it heavy. I mean, logically, if you start stretching those certain muscles and make them a little more relaxed, and then you say, okay, I'm going to load a heavy bench press, that may not be the most optimal thing for the shoulder integrity. So by doing activations, I'm telling those muscles, hey, wake up. Time to turn on now. You're stimulating your nervous system. You're sending your signals to your nervous system to the muscle via the nervous system. So thereby saying, hey, it's time to work, making them strong, getting some blood flow, getting some nervous activation, and preparing them for exercise. And I'm more of a fan of that kind of stuff, especially around the shoulder and hip joint. Obviously, we've all had shoulder and elbow problems and hip problems, and 15 years of training and beating ourselves senseless. So learning these little tricks are things that I've really done to optimize my joints and my training.
And if you have a great training partner, I would highly recommend you guys doing a lot of assistive stretching.
Yeah.
Having somebody bring you way farther back beyond like what your normal flexibility would allow you to do. I think that's where the true benefits are. In stretching, is getting some partners assisted stretching.
Charles Poliquin's a big fan of assisted stretching, provided it ends on a contraction. So what that would look like is Ryan's going to put me into a stretch further than I can normally go, hold that for about 10 to 15 seconds, and then before he lets that go, I'm actually going to push back and activate this muscle, and then I'm going to relax. He's going to go push back a little further, and then I'm going to push back and activate this muscle and move. That's PNF stretching theoretically, but you're always going to end on a contraction, so you're giving that muscle the signal to contract versus elongate.
Yeah.
So, I mean, theories are out, right? This is all speculative. A lot of it needs to be tested. We really don't know. A lot of it is like, hey, this is what I prefer, this is what I prefer. So we're just giving you guys insights into what goes on in our brain when we train to optimize what we do.
Yeah, I mean, we both have, 20 years apiece of knowledge and actual, work inside, fitness inside the gym, and these are both proven methods. These are both methods that we've both seen work and have a great deal of success with our clients with. And so, like you said, there's no real right or wrong. It's all about application and finding out what works best for you. But definitely trying to stay up to date on, on the techniques and whatnot. And that's what we're here to try to do. That's what he's trying to do.
Over and out. All Max boys wrapping it up.
Train hard, baby.